In this lecture, we'll be looking at the dreaded words homework. It's actually one word, but some people divide it as well. But homework is a key element of teaching. We all, as teachers, always apply homework to our classrooms. This could be in any situation. Sometimes it's classwork, and sometimes it's homework. We have homework reviews, and we have all these elements that we like our students to encourage them to do work on their own. I chose this topic because the idea of this topic is very true to our classrooms. It is a very strong methods program, and that students really either come to like it or come to hate it. As teachers, we use it a lot, but we definitely hear a lot of myths that float. And one of the big myths is that students have too much homework. And I decided to pull up some research, pull up some articles, so that by the time this lecture ends, we as students and learners of education have a better understanding of where this idea of homework is. So I've picked 5 articles, and we'll go through these articles and make sure we understand them, and we'll pull up and kind of get an idea of what the idea of homework is, especially since we assign so much, or do we? We'll see this shortly. You should be, the app share should be open at this time, and you will be looking at, right now you're looking at the Welcome to Virtual Classroom. So, and then I'll just flip over to the article now. And the article is Cost and Benefits of Family Involvement in Homework. This was a very new article. It's 2011, and it's the Journal of Advanced Academics. And we'll go through this article as our first article. What factors affect student achievement? Research indicates that in addition to classroom instruction and students to class lessons, homework is one important factor that increases achievement. We need to definitely look at a pause there and understand that there's 3 parts to this. As teachers, we have our lectures, and our lectures are very important to us, such as the one I'm giving now. We work hard preparing our lectures. The second thing is the students have responses to the lectures or to the lessons. This can be classwork, this can be activities, the jigsaw technique, this can be any technique that you want to do. And then the third thing is the element of homework. So as teachers, we want our students to have that 3 legs of the stool. The first leg is the lecture, the second leg is the response to the lesson activities, and the third leg is homework. By doing these 3 legs, these students are constantly reinforced and they can learn more on their own. The process of learning should not be confined to just the classroom. When we have our students, we only have them for a short period of time each day. We want our students to go out to the real world and have a meaningful homework experience that will ultimately let them continue their learning process. It says, although results vary, many studies of homework effects of students' achievement report percentile gains for students between 8 to 31%. So therefore, homework does serve a cliff for students. So homework actually increases achievement 8 to 31% for each student. So homework is a good thing. Homework is good. Homework requires students, teachers, and parents to invest time and effort on assignments. Their views about homework vary. On a positive note, 90% of teachers, students, and parents believe homework will help students reach important goals. So everyone believes that homework is good for you. However, 26% of students, 24% of teachers, and 40% of parents report that some homework is just busy work. So even a quarter of all teachers who assign homework agree that it's just busy work. The majority of the parents believe it's homework, it's busy work. Amazing. 29% of parents report homework is a major source of stress. So homework does cause stress. It is critical then to improve current practice and for educators and researchers to examine the emotional, cognitive costs and benefits of homework for students, families, and teachers. So if we have an idea that homework is good for you, and homework does benefit students 8 to 25%, and that homework is good. 90% of students people say homework is good. However, a lot of people say it's busy work, it's stressful, and it's not a good thing. Then we need to fix disconnect. Now, what this paper does, this 2011 paper does, is it creates two groups. The researchers did. One group used a brand new homework style called the Teachers Involved Parents in Schoolwork, or TIPS program. And the second group was a control group. The control group just received basic homework assignments like they always do. The TIPS program, the TIPS group, actually used a modified or new homework program. So with this said, this article is good to look at and to read and understand. However, we need to understand that the TIPS program is something that the researchers may have invented, or they may have a financial back-end. So if they can show that the TIPS program is good, then they can definitely advocate for that. Now, that's not saying that they went into the research thinking that TIPS was better and they were going to do that. That would be unethical. However, they definitely, the research does find that the TIPS program is good, so they're going to use that and stress that. So when you see the word TIPS, that's the Teachers Involved Parents in Schoolwork homework program that the school has. So that's just what that is, so that you'll understand whenever you see that. Cost and benefit of family involvement in homework. This is something that the article brings up, so we need to make sure we see. Family members involved in homework. Didn't know that. A common complaint about homework, and one of the most studied factors, is time on homework. Data on time students spend on homework vary based on who reports it. So that's one thing that we always hear about homework. So we need to look at this myth or this rumor that we always hear. Parents of elementary students have a fair sense of their children's homework responsibilities, but in the secondary grades, parents often underestimate the frequency of homework assignments and overestimate their time spent. So parents in the elementary grades have a better understanding of their students' homework assignments. We all can agree on that, maybe because of several factors. One would be that parents, elementary students, they don't really have that, secretive relationship where the students, a teenager is not going to tell you everything. Maybe a 8 or 9-year-old will tell their parents when they have homework. Also, parents can watch their child do homework, and when you have a teenager, they just shut the door. So, But another little point right here that's kind of weird is parents often underestimate the frequency of the homework assignments. So whenever you ask your child how many homework assignments do they have this week, as a teenager, the parent would say maybe 4 or 5 when the child probably had 9 or 10. So the parents underestimate how many times their child has homework. However, they overestimate the time their children spend on homework. So this kind of brings us to our mindset of a child, a teenager. Your parents, the child comes home. This is just my little world, but the child comes home and the parent says to the teenager son, how many, do you have any homework now? He goes, no, I'm good. So that may be a reason for the underestimation of the frequency of how many times they have homework. And then the child goes, I'm going to my room to do one homework assignment I have for next week. So the parent goes, man, my child sure is working hard, but the child probably is in the bedroom surfing the internet or texting, as a lot of them like to do. So we see a difference there. So that's a very good little research part that we see from Mockile in 2007. Some teachers tend to underestimate how often families are involved. So there's another piece to the puzzle. In one study, the middle school students' parents helped their children with homework on average between 1 and 3 times per week, and homework 4 times per week. So when we give homework, we kind of think that maybe the parents aren't being involved with homework, but the truth that we're seeing is parents are involved with homework. In the students report working with their parents on schoolwork between 1 and 3 times weekly. However, students report that teachers ask them to request parental assistance only 1 or 2 times per month on tasks such as checking work, studying for tests, or working on projects. So, parents were giving instructions and assistance to their children more frequent than what teachers were requesting. Is this cheating? I don't think it is. I would say it's not, because the whole idea of homework is an element of supposed to be assistance from the parents. That's what homework is. It's a home, so that would be a good research question someone would ask or could ask is, if you expect parents to help with homework, where does the line of cheating occur? And how can we really expect them not to receive help? It's a gray area, we would say. The article says these discrepancies are just one example of homework communication problems among all parties involved. Overall, many education issues, a percentage of students of all grades, 5% of 9-year-olds, 8% of 13-year-olds, and 11% of 17-year-olds spend a lot of time on homework, greater than 2 hours per night. So now we're seeing more of a time on homework. 11% of 17-year-olds spend more than 2 hours on homework, and that's not much when we look at that. You know, when we compare ourselves to South Korea, where the students, it's a majority of students spend more than 2 hours per night. So that's not a lot, 11%. Others complete none at all or fail to complete assignment homework. Check this out. 24 to 39% of students do not do homework. That's a pretty big number. And many are right in the middle, completing less than 1 hour. So, how much time does a student spend on homework? The majority of students spend less than 1 hour on homework a night. Between 8 to 10% of the students spend greater than 2 hours. And I would say 1 in 4, almost to 1 in 3, do not do any homework at all. So that's kind of amazing. So there's your statistics, and now we can get rid of that. How much time do our students actually spend on homework misconception? Some studies conducted on the relationship of time on homework and achievement find that the age of the student moderates that relationship. The homework and achievement relationship is stronger and positive for secondary students and negative or null for elementary students. So what does that mean? In elementary, the more time the students spend on homework does not mean that the student will achieve better. However, the more time a secondary student spends on homework, the more achievement they will have. This could be for many reasons. One reason could be that elementary homework is very, straightforward, and teachers may not give a large amount of homework. Also, a lot of the elementary classes, they do build upon themselves. However, for the most part, lessons can be taught individually. But in the secondary, the more you study, the more you learn, the more you understand. So you definitely see that. The studies have resulted in different time expectations for younger and older students. Many schools have adopted the 10-minute rule as a general guide for developmentally appropriate time on homework. For example, students in the elementary and middle grades should be assigned roughly 10 minutes multiplied by the grade level. For example, 30 minutes for a third grade, 40 minutes for a fourth grade, and so on. The time differences also raise some questions about different purposes and content of homework across the grade. So that's kind of an interesting and justifiable definition of how much homework someone should spend. So if you have a 10th grader, they should spend 100 minutes on homework, or roughly an hour and 40 minutes. All right, not really roughly, but exactly, whatever. So kind of makes sense that a 12th spend 2 hours of homework, because only 10% of 12th graders actually spend 2 hours on homework, and the ones who do are having a better achievement according to the research. It's a pretty good rule, I would say. Issues of purpose and content relate to the next topic, homework design. There are instructional and non-instructional and non-academic purposes of homework. So what are the purposes of homework? More than 70% of homework assignments by teachers at all levels of schooling are designed for the purpose of students finishing classwork or practicing skills. 70%. Homework in the early grades should encourage positive attitudes and traits. For secondary grades, homework should work towards improving standardized test scores and grades. Teacher reports that the homework process needs to improve and that they would like time to ensure their assignments are relevant to the course and topic of study. Homework design also needs to develop the third topic, family involvement in the homework process. Families report that homework costs them time and energy when teachers fail to explain the assignment to students in class. And that happens a lot. Oh, when you receive a homework assignment and you just don't understand it, you'll leave the classroom because you don't want to bother the teacher, but then you leave the classroom and you go home and you go, and you say this phrase, I don't know what he wants. That's very disturbing to the parents. And they'll say, weren't you listening? Well, I was listening, but we'll call your friend and see what they do. See, so homework directions need to be clear. Parents report that they sometimes provide poor or inappropriate help, often feel unprepared to help with certain subjects, and sometimes spend time trying to motivate their children to complete their homework by making them more interesting. The quality of the family-student interactions not only affects students' completion of homework and achievement, but also children's emotional and social functioning. The quality of the family-student interactions not only affects students' completion of homework, but also the emotional and social functioning. So, what does that mean? If you as a teacher give a homework assignment that is vague and causes confusion, when the child goes home, they're going to have that interaction with their parents. Their parents not going to understand, and this is going to cause a negative emotional and social element. That's right. Your bad homework directions could lead to this child having a bad home life interaction. Now, I'm not saying that your child will drop out of school and get on drugs. I'm just saying positive directions that are clear will cause the student and the parent relationship to be easier when they help each other out. But then you respond, but I don't want homework to be a parent-assisted assignment. Well, that's something that you need to pull your head out of the sand, because homework helps the parent and the child interact. I don't want the child having the parent do all the homework for them. Well, then that's definitely, you don't want that to happen. You don't want the parent doing the homework for the child. But then again, almost 40% of our children aren't even doing their homework. So any kind of positive interaction will help that relationship. Kenny Benson and Pomeranz simulated a lab homework experience and found that elementary students with mothers who were involved in an autonomy supportive manner were less likely to experience depressive symptoms than children with controlling mothers. Ooh. Similarity, junior high students who perceived Their parents, as supportive of their academic endeavors, exhibited less acting out behaviors. Parents of elementary and middle grade students reported they would help their children more if the teacher guided them in how they could help at home. So there's your research, folks. Very good research. And it actually says that, if you are a controlling parent, now they said mother, they didn't look at fathers, so I don't have any research on those. But if you are a controlling mother, or we'll just make the assumption parent, then your child may have some symptoms of depression later on, according to that research. If you are a supportive parent, your child will have less examples or exhibit less traits of depression. Wow, that's kind of amazing. Controlling parents is not a good thing. Some of y'all may have been products of supportive households. I was a product of a supportive household, and it definitely is a good situation. Now, then what this study does, we can skip over this next couple of pages because the study talks about examining the TIPS program, and then it looks at, they have a method where they do that. So let's get to the most important thing, summary of what they found. So we'll just scroll down. Your screens may have to take some time to catch up, but let's scroll down to the conclusion section. And I'll go ahead and put these up online for you. All 5 articles will be on the course content page. This right here says feelings about homework interaction. And the feelings about homework interactions is, well, right here, you'll see we're on page 236. So hopefully everything's caught up now when I scroll down. Also popped into Wimber real quick to see if my voice is recording, which it is. So let's look at the feelings about homework interactions. The students evaluate their own and their mother's feelings while working together on subject-specific homework. Significant differences emerged across homework conditions. So, 66% of the TIPS program that we talked about previously indicated a happy homework experience. But this is what I really want to look at, is this number, the 4th line down. 51% of control students did. So we don't really have to worry about the TIPS program because the TIPS program in this research is a little bit better than just basic homework assignments. And you can read the article about the whole process of the TIPS program. But that's something that's very interesting, is the 66 and the 51. Homework really isn't designed to be a happy experience where it brings you joy and it makes you the greatest moment of your life. That's not supposed to be that way. 51% of students and 66% of the students in the control group said it was a happy experience. Now, that's fine. You don't want it where it's a miserable experience, but homework is not supposed to bring about complete joy. Now, if you could bring joy into homework, that would be awesome. Absolutely. But we're seeing with the statistics, homework is not a happy experience for the students. Even half of the control group and 66% of the TIPS program students all said that, it was happy, it was okay, so that's fine. Families evaluate their own and their child's feelings. Of course, the parents of the TIPS program said they were more happy than the control families. But look at this. 51% of the TIPS family reported a happy experience, and 32% of control families did so. So the parents do not see as much happiness in homework as the students do. So, that's another piece to our puzzle, that students receive a little bit more happiness out of homework than the parents do. But parents are involved in homework, as we saw in our research. Very interesting. Just a little bit of statistics for you to understand. Now, homework attitudes. Students answered 4 questions each year about the quality of homework. And let's scroll down here to the conclusions. Look at student achievement. So white students scored higher than African American students, below average students, and those receiving free or reduced lunches. They tried to do a statistical analysis of the achievement of the students, and it said that the complete model accounted for 40% of the variance. They really, as I read this over and over again, we couldn't find a strong conclusion that the academic achievement was increased. So they tried to say it would make it better. Their conclusion pretty much boils down to that the TIPS program is good, but they really don't tie it into a strong academic achievement. I just don't see that as I read this. They do have some lessons here. The first lesson is that the TIPS program that they've been advocating actually helps the students engage positively over homework, which is good. And then some other things right here. Sustained use of the TIPS design related to gains in student academic achievement to a point as I looked at the statistics. This is good for everyone. Better homework practice does not necessitate more student time. And that's something that's very interesting. The more homework you give does not mean that the students will say, hey, we've got more homework, we need to work more. Also, the harder you work at your homework, let's say you've got the best directions, you've got the best everything, and it's a really good situation. No matter how hard you work, doesn't mean the students are going to increase their time on homework. So therefore, the conclusion is that the students who have given you 1 hour of homework that night, because the majority of students work less than 1 hour, they're not going to increase that. So when you give homework to a student, you need to keep in mind that they're only going to work less than an hour a night on all their homework. And this says right here on the last line, their TIPS program did not magically appear. So, in conclusion on that section right there, students are not going to increase the time they have on homework. So therefore, a good research idea would be, how can we encourage to increase their homework time if everyone's doing just about an hour? But with that said, we saw in the review of LIT numbers that ranged from 22 to 32%. So there needs to be, first off, more research on how much students are spending at home on homework. So that was a really good survey a student could do if you ever wanted to do that. You could do a survey on how much students are spending on homework, and you could compare that with their parents. Because the research showed like 22 to 30, the ranges were pretty wild. So we all know that the majority of students don't spend any time on homework. They spend less than an hour. We saw that, but the ranges were wild. And then once you had that number set down, you could then start looking at how can I, teacher, encourage students to expand that amount of time. Limitations of the study, and then down here they have practical suggestions. So this is kind of, there's really good practical suggestions for any teacher. Design interactive homework. You should think carefully about your homework before you create them. They should not be a last-minute homework assignment. It should be something you think about before you do. I had a student a couple of years ago withdraw from, we had a bunch of students withdraw from an online course. And we set a couple of them down and we just said, hey, you know, what's going on? And they said, the big word, busy work. They said, all we're doing is busy work. So you're kind of like, yeah, you know, I see that. I definitely, you know, busy work. Why is it busy? Well, all we're doing is copying work and copying this. If you'll notice with this class, the assignments are, they're there. They're few and far between. But the ones we do, we try to make more meaningful. And we try to connect it to a lecture. I'm not bragging or anything, but sometimes students will say, all I do is listen to a lecture. You know, I wonder what my grade is. Well, you're all doing fine. I've sent you midterm grades. Everybody's doing very well. But the idea is, Should I just give you busy work assignments, or should I make homework assignments more relevant? And that's what I lean towards. I would rather give my class as a whole 3 or 4 assignments a semester that are meaningful and you get something out of it. And I'd rather walk up to you and I'd rather say, hey, did you learn something in class? And you say, hey, Dr. Atla, I learned a little bit. I liked it. It was okay. I didn't like the online part. I didn't like the lectures. And, but I learned a little bit. And I'll be, okay, that's good. But I'd rather you not say, well, all we did was work. All we did was homework. And I'm like, so I'd rather you learn something from the class and you leave from that. And, sometimes students will just turn on the lectures, they'll play them, and they won't listen to them. Whatever. And that's just kind of cheating yourself. Should I give tests on that to make sure what you're learning? I don't think so. I'm a strong believer that college classes are paid for by the student, and they cost a lot of money. We all know this. And that, if I pay for something, I want something good. I pay a lot of money for daycare, and if I pay a lot of money for daycare, I want my child to be safe. And if you're paying a lot of money for classes, I'm just a strong believer that you should want to learn, and you should strive to learn. And that's good, and that's what all of y'all are doing. I'm very proud of all of y'all. But it's the same way with homework. I believe if I'm going to give you homework, I want to make it meaningful. It may be a 10-minute assignment, and it may be a 2-week assignment, but I want it to be meaningful for you. You, however, may not see the meaning, and that's where being just a lifetime student, that's what I've been. I spent a long time in college. I'm not smart, but the more I spend in college, and when I got out of college, I learned some lessons. And one thing was, and I try to put those lessons on with you. So I try to give you assignments that maybe, hopefully, praying that down the road you'll look back and see that assignment as meaningful. So if I gave you, like a lot of these lectures, if you'll notice, I'll just give you some examples. I'm talking kind of abstract. I had a professor a long time ago, many years ago, who taught me pretty much by just showing me PowerPoints. And I was like, okay, whatever. And then whenever I get out of college, I don't have that research base. I took some history classes at Ole Miss, and the history people are really amazing. They study a lot, and they know a lot of authors. They know a lot of books. They learn names. So I saw that element, that when you talk to a history professor, they know researchers, they know names. I mean, they memorize the book's name. They memorize all that stuff so they can quote it. And I wanted to bring that element to the field of education so that when you leave one of my classes, you go, wow, we just didn't show PowerPoints. We didn't talk about class. We actually looked at some of the research. We looked at some of the names. And I actually learned some stuff that I can quote with my teachers. So whenever a principal stands up in your class and he says, hey, everybody, we're given too much homework, then, and he calls you over to the side and he goes, well, do you agree with me? You have a master's degree. You're smart. You're very smart. You're one of the smartest people here. Do you agree with me? And you can say, it's a slippery slope because homework increases students' performance 20%, and that 90% of parents agree with it. However, to say that we give too much homework is not really backed by the research, because the research says that students spend up to 1 hour on homework, and that's it. So the more homework I give doesn't mean the students are going to do more homework. And he's going to go, wow, where did you learn that? And you'll go, I read an article in class. And you go, oh, see? So you definitely want to make homework relevant. I just received a weird little error message. It said the video is not used, which is fine. I'm rubbing that this is still recording. So instead of stopping the lecture and going back, we're just going to hope this lecture is still going, and we're going to keep plugging away. So fingers crossed. Here we go. That's the joy of Wimba. Wimba uses Java, and Java is very good, but sometimes can act a little weird, especially on an older computer such as mine. So let's keep trugging along. And so homework needs to be a meaningful experience. According to this, it says the archive is still recording. I've got voice going, so hopefully let's just keep rolling. You want to recognize the importance of the interactive nature. The second one is, do not expect the family partner to teach social skills. The student should compute the answers to the problems, write paragraphs, and collect information. The family partner serves as an assistant, not the teacher. And I really don't think that we look at that way. I like this recommendation. However, I don't think many of us view parents as they're going to teach the material to this child. And I've talked to a lot of my students about this. I think, we're very happy if the parents do help. And that's something we're very happy about. Need to identify the student-family roles clearly. Need to, say, this is what your job is going to be. If you're going to receive outside help, this is what your parents should do. Link skills and the objectives to the real world. And that's good too. You want them to leave with having known something. I gave a homework assignment to one of my classes a long time ago in which they had to call school districts and they had to ask the secretary some questions. I may do that in here. That homework assignment, students scratch their head and they go, why am I calling a secretary? And then a year later, one of the students walked up to me and they said, hey, I really enjoyed that because by calling them, I learned how to get a job. I learned who to talk to. I actually made some friends. So those are kind of cool little things to do that. I actually had one assignment where the students had to call all the local districts and ask them how much they paid for substitute teachers. And the students were like, this is really a stupid idea. I don't want to do this. This is not fun. And then after the class, about two of the students said, you know what? I started substitute teaching. They said, I called a couple of times, and one of them said, we pay $60. I said, I'm going to jump on that. They said, all right, come on. So have a real-world connection. That's definitely what we want. Pre-test and edit the assignment. Just like whenever you're doing a survey, have someone just look at the assignment and say, does this make sense? Now, we usually don't have time for that, but you can give it to one of your best students, one of your brightest students before class or at the start and say, can you read these directions and see if you know what I'm talking about? If you have a student observer, if you have a student teacher, you can ask them to look at it. Parent, wife, and you get the idea. Many times we experiment with another class. We say, I'll give this a homework assignment to this class and see how it goes. Not really a good idea according to the research because, it's not good to test it on your students. But if you could, try to test it on yourself or someone else. Vary the type of interactions. Homework shouldn't be just paper and pencil. It shouldn't be where the students sit down and do that. It shouldn't be where the students just work with their mom or dad. Have them work with other people in their families. Develop assignments you would enjoy in completing, and that comes from the happiness indicator. And that's something that we want to look at, we definitely want to do is develop assignments that you would enjoy completing. So that's something that I look at too. The conclusion says that the study, let me pause there. I remember one assignment, and everyone keeps saying I always bring it up. I'm just a country boy, so we used to have a leaf collection assignment. And my family always waited to the last minute, or I did at least. And I would wake up and it's like 6 o'clock in the afternoon. I'd take a nap after school, and my dad would just get home, and I'd say, hey, Dad, I got to do a leaf collection. It's due tomorrow. And I remember to this day my dad getting up and going outside, and we're walking. He goes, that's an oak leaf, pick it up. That's this. We would always do our assignments at the last minute, but that's an assignment that I really enjoyed doing. I got to walk through the woods with my father. And we really enjoyed it. He bless his heart, we wore out. He worked 12 hours a day doing. He's a registered nurse. So my mom was a registered nurse, so they worked alternating shifts. So he worked as hard as he could, and so he was so tired, and I'd always drag him out there. And it finally got to the point where we'd be in the middle of summer, and if I saw like a red ant or some cow ants or velvet ants or big ants, my dad would say, "Catch that. We can use that for a bug collection if you ever need it." So my dad would actually have us do our assignments before we were even assigned, because he knew that one day down the road we'd have a bug assignment, and that we would wait till the last minute. So he would actually make us go ahead and collect now, and they'd be in the freezer. So we'd have a bunch of frozen bugs, and so it's kind of cool. So definitely those were assignments I remembered and I enjoyed. I can't tell you how many term papers I've done or research papers I've done that were not fun. And that's something that I just forget about. So you want to have assignments that are enjoyable. They have a conclusion here saying that the TIPS program was good. I'm sure they tried to sell it after that or whatever. And then talks about their sources. So it's a really good article. And because we had the video era, here's what I'm going to do if you're listening to this lecture. I'm going to make sure that this lecture is good by closing this out. I think we've recorded about probably 40-something minutes of this lecture. So I had 5 articles. So we'll go ahead and close this article out, and that will leave us our other 4 articles that we may skim over, or we may just pick a couple of these. But I'm going to go ahead and stop this recording and label it Homework Part 1, so that when you finish this, look for Homework Part 2. So that way, I know it's not going to be 2 hours of lecture and 1 continuous lecture, but it'll be segmented, because I want to make sure that this lecture did record. Those error messages do pop up. So this lecture is really not complete. So this is just part 1. So this is the conclusion of part 1, and go ahead and go back into the recorded lecture section and look for part 2 at this time. Thank you for listening.